Hi, everyone.
Hello.
We haven't been together on this topic since July 1st, which doesn't seem possible.
How is that possible?
Yeah,
Wow.
it really went by fast. And, there's so many things that the momentum was going well in so many ways, and salons were enjoying. I mean, I just talked to a salon from Warsaw, and they're up 3%, even for the year,
Wow.
even going through COVID. So a lot of good stories. I was also on a phone call with a salon today that's opening their business, and I'm thinking, God bless you. You're starting your business
In a pandemic.
and on the second wave of it, no less. So our thoughts are with everyone, and we want to talk to you about what we're sensing and how we go into that planning mode of how we're going to respond to this again.
And thoughtfulness and preparedness is going to be the key. The first time that this happened, when it happened to all of us in March, it caught us all, I don't want to say it did catch us by surprise. Certainly the length of it caught us by surprise. None of us have lived through anything like this, like 2020 has been. And we certainly don't want to be, the courier of bad news. No. But because we're not. We're very optimistic, although I'm personally more pessimistic about the immediate future. The immediate future is probably going to be a challenge for everyone. We're back in it. And if anyone's listened to news, even regardless of what news you listen to, you know that we're in this second very strong wave of the pandemic.
Well, and today was a record day for Illinois at 10,000 plus cases. And, when you're sitting on a 19% or nearly 19% number, and at one point, I remember when we thought 5 was high.
Well, yeah, when we came back.
Yeah, when we came back.
It was trending more toward 4 and 5%. And when they said we'd have to go to additional mitigations if it maintained an 8%, no one thought that's possible. And it wasn't for several months.
And the math is still really difficult for me to get my head around. I don't know if any of you are like this, but the more testing you do, and the more results you're going to have, and it's going to change the percentage, but we still have to play by the percentage and the formula, and we have to respond accordingly. So, where do you want to start?
Well, first I want to start with the fact that we've got 3 different areas that we need to speak to. One is Chicago, because Chicago has its own plan within the state of Illinois. And it's usually what Illinois does and a little bit more. For example, the travel ban or the emergency travel order only exists in Chicago. It doesn't exist in the rest of the state. So there's some things that we need to speak to that are specific to Chicago and the immediate future in Chicago. There's some things that we need to speak to the state of Illinois, and then there's some things that we need to speak to about the state of Indiana. So that's what we're going to try and do in this conversation.
Okay.
But the biggest thing is this. I think as salon owners, whether you're a suite owner, whether you're a salon owner of multiple people, or whether you're a salon owner of multiple locations, what you have to prepare for right now is how do we learn what we need to learn to be able to lead the charge that we need to lead. In other words, how are you going to communicate this with your team? Most of your teams are in the younger age group, okay, so 20s, 30s, and that's the age group that has the most pandemic fatigue or coronavirus fatigue, meaning they're done with it, they're tired of it. They don't want to put their lives on hold. They don't want to live in fear. They don't want to wear a mask. They don't want to social distance.
I didn't know I was in my 20s and 30s. That sounds like me too.
Yeah, that's true. But you're
like
complying. That. That's the difference is that
we're staying home. Yeah,
we're staying home, and others aren't. So if there's one thing that's consistent throughout, whether it's Chicago, whether it's the rest of the state of Illinois or the state of Indiana, the mantra is the same, and it's been the same now for 8 months, 9 months. It's wear your mask. When you leave the house, wear your mask. It's wash your hands. It's social distance.
Mm-hmm.
It's pay attention to the size groups. The size of casual settings that you go to. This isn't a time for a party. This isn't a time even for a family gathering. What I heard Mayor Lightfoot say today was, don't even have people in your house that are members of your family that don't reside with you. That's strong. I mean, who would think of that? I mean, I've got grown children that, it's strange when you say you can't have family that doesn't live with you in your home right now, and how critical this time is. In many cases, I think I heard on the way in, Mayor Lightfoot said we're doubling every 12 days the number of cases. That's huge. So what we have to realize is that if we're going to make progress with this, we have to have cooperation inside our building and outside our building. You only have a say for what happens inside your building. But we have to talk to them regularly about what happens outside the building and not putting themselves, their families, their co-workers, and their guests at risk. We've been very fortunate that the contact tracing hasn't brought back anything to salons at this point, nor has it brought back anything to PSC at this point, which is, we're fortunate. I think that we have the protocols in place. Salons have invested in the right protocols, but the more fatigue we get, the more we're tired of this pandemic, the more at risk we can be with our behaviors outside the building and even inside the building. There's been a lot of cases where I've heard that stylists are asking their clients, are you okay if I take my mask off? I'm okay if you take yours off. We've got to be so careful of that. This isn't the time for that. And I don't want to sound like another talking head, but I do want to always be honest with you and say kind of where we're headed. Right now in Illinois, we've got 4 regions that are in Tier 2 of the mitigations. And here's what that means. Tier 2, we started at Tier 1 of mitigations when we got above that 8%. Now, all of this state is in Tier 1, with the exception of 4 regions, 1, 5, 7, and 8. And so what that means, 1 is Northwest Illinois, the Rockford area, Rockford, Freeport, those counties up in the northwest corner of Illinois. Mm-hmm. Region 5, which is southeastern Illinois. If you think of Illinois, the southern part of Illinois, split it in half, and the southeast, all of those counties, there's probably about 10 counties, 11 counties down in that are all in Tier 2 as well of the mitigations. Region 7, which is Will and Kankakee County, is in Tier 2 as well. And if you're saying, what's Tier 2? Please don't confuse it with Phase 2 or Phase 3 or Phase 4 of the Reopen Illinois plan. These are part of the mitigation plan. So everything that's in the Reopen Illinois plan is in place, but then these mitigations are in place. Will and Kankakee County. Also, Region 8, which is DuPage and Kane County. So all around the city of Chicago, we're in Tier 2 mitigation. Chicago itself is in Tier 1 at the current moment. So what the concern is that we're not mitigating it, meaning it's not decreasing. In fact, it's increasing. Some say we've lost control. Some say we are absolutely headed in the wrong direction, and we are headed for a stay-at-home order. And I want to say what the difference is. Stay-at-home order is what we were under in March.
Mm-hmm.
Mayor Lightfoot put in a stay-at-home advisory, which stops short of saying you must. Okay? They're advising it. So they're advising things like, if you can work from home, work from home. Only go out if it's necessary for a COVID test, if it's necessary for your work or for your school.
Or food.
Or food or drugs, pharmacy. Okay, so that's what they're suggesting, and they're putting so much emphasis on it. They're saying don't hold a party anywhere, don't go to a party anywhere, don't go to an event. They're putting increased coverage on kind of, I don't want to say policing it, but on maintaining it, on maintaining this standard. So in Chicago, that's what you need to do. In addition to that, Chicago changed up their emergency travel order. And I just want to show you this. I don't know how well it's going to show up, but I know even from a distance, you can see that there's a dark red and there's orange. And there's a difference in what that means. So you've got red, orange, and yellow. And what the red means is you must quarantine for 14 days if you return from a state that is red. If it's orange, they still want you, in all of these, they want you to avoid travel there. But if you do travel there and you come back from a orange, you can either quarantine for 14 days or have a negative COVID test when you return. And they're saying pre-arrival negative test result with strict masking, social distancing, and avoidance of in-person gatherings.
So pre-arrival, you have to take it in the state that you visit?
Pre-arrival to Chicago. So if you live in the suburbs and you're going into the city, before you go into the city after you're back, you want that negative test.
Who's going to police this?
Well, the people who work I can tell you from my experience, the people who work in a building with someone are the people that police it, because everyone's concerned about getting the virus.
Oh, okay.
So, and then yellow is avoid non-essential travel and no quarantine or COVID test is required.
Okay.
And I can tell you there's not too many yellow states. Okay? So, that's that, and that's new this week. Okay? So, if you are holding on to what your perception of the emergency travel order being prior to this week, that's now passed, and this is the new program that's in place. So, we've got where Tier 2 is. What I want to tell you is that just listening to Governor Pritzker, they asked the question, do you think, are you going to wait 3 weeks to decide on a stay-at-home order? And what he said was, in interesting words, he said, with every fiber of my being, I want to avoid a stay-at-home order. But with the direction the numbers are going,
it might be unavoidable.
It might be unavoidable. Then in a question and answer, someone said, will you wait 3 weeks? Should the numbers continue to increase, will you wait 3 weeks, or perhaps will you move to a stay-at-home order before that? And he said, we would do it before that if the numbers dictated. That they're going to listen to the epidemiologists and the numbers and the scientists. So that's where we're at. There are people who think that we're headed for that, undoubtedly. I just spoke to someone who believes undoubtedly, there's no doubt that we're going to be in a stay-at-home order, not option. But it'll be different than the last one. So what that means, we can only wait. Whereas at one time, I'll be honest, because from our previous ones, there was a time where I got the privilege of being on some of those kind of focus group calls. Communication has shut way down. Even people that are very close and very in the know are not in the know at this point.
Hmm.
There's very little conversation that's going on with anyone outside of that immediate circle of the IDPH and so on. So please don't think we're talking as if we know. But as coaches to you, and as someone whose business is only in place because of you and your loyalty, we feel that we need to A, start communicating again with the things that we can listen to and the things that we know. B, fight on your behalf wherever possible. C, get you thinking beyond just behind the chair, because it's so important that you get prepared. We had a meeting today. I can tell you the type of things that we did as a company. As a company, we have first to comply. So we're going to comply with what they've asked. Any person who can work from home will work from home for PSC. Our warehouse team, they got to be here to touch the product. So they'll be here. But because of the expansion that we just did, there's plenty of room for social distance, and they're very dedicated to masking. And also we've got protocols in place. We fog the business several times a week. We have some additional sanitation that takes place from an outside firm that comes in, and we're asking people themselves to keep their work areas very well. We pre-screen every day. We take temperatures every day. And so here's what that means to you. What that means to you is that if you're a space guest, meaning you come in and traditionally shop here and pick up your product, we're going back to a curbside delivery at least for the next 3 weeks.
We had a hard time with this topic. I mean, we looked at it from every which way. I think that when you look at what the numbers are saying and the exposure, I mean, just think of a company that's a core value is education. We can't take the risk of gathering people together. And so, and my head goes every which way because you're gathering with your guest every single day. And so why aren't we? It's because when we gather with our guest, in an educational format, we're opening it up to a very, very wide base of people, whether it's from all of Indiana, all of Illinois. So when we have people in and they're from all different parts of the 2 states, and even farther than that sometimes, we're creating a bigger trace. So, Steve's point when we were on the call today was, the market's open, the grocery store.
Retail's open.
Retail's open. How can we not be open? Well, when we think of our company, the size of ours, maybe there's more labor resources in those larger organizations. If we have a couple of people that go down here, it affects a whole lot at PSC. So we've decided to go to curbside, make our circles smaller right now, asking our staff to really be careful outside of the work environment, to be protective, so when they're in the work environment, we all have a commitment to safety. And that's going to begin on Monday, where we're having people work from home as much as possible and also be curbside only in our process of our store.
Mm-hmm. Also, our education that we had just started to
open up,
prop the door open a little bit to allow people to come back for training here at PSC. We are transitioning all of that immediately to virtual education. And
so what they're thinking as owners, they can't do virtual haircuts. They can't
Right.
they can't do virtual touch-ups. So,
but think about it. If we don't take care of what goes on inside our buildings and what goes on outside our buildings, it's only a matter of time before they close down our buildings again with a stay-at-home. So this isn't optional. Just like it's not optional to do a virtual haircut, it's not optional to not follow the protocols that we put in place just because we're fatigued or we're tired of it. We have to make sure that we're following those protocols.
And maybe we even have loosened up a little bit. I'm not talking about PSC, I'm talking about the salons. Maybe they're saying 6 months and we've had no exposure. You know, thank your lucky stars.
Well, something that I guess I want to bring up again, and where it's possible, do you want to entertain this? People waiting, I know one thing is, we don't have people waiting in their cars anymore to come in. Now we've had to go to animal hospital a couple times in the last 2 weeks, and guess what? It says lobby is closed. Check in on the phone, and then they call you when the doctor's ready for your dog. And that makes sense. It just makes sense.
Well, and I sat in the parking lot for 3 hours, and you were there another day and sat there for 3 hours, and what are we going to do, argue with it? No, it's what they're doing to protect their patients
And their staff.
And their staff and the patient's parents.
Yes. So that's something that maybe we stopped doing, that maybe we need to think about doing again. This is the time where you review again all of your protocols.
And see if you can tighten them up at all.
And could we do it better?
Well, I went to a med spa on Saturday, and they said during the confirmation call, remember, do not come in until you're announced, and that we welcome you at the door. You're not to come in until then, and you must have a mask on, and we will take your temperature, and all that will happen on the welcome mat. Okay? And there'll never be anyone else in the lobby with you. Okay? And hearing it is a sense of gratitude and also a sense of relief.
Well, and let's also say that every protocol you have in place is being honored, and you feel that you're doing as much as you can do in the right way. It's time to communicate that again with your customers. It's been long enough now where, see, to me, when the news pipes up with issues, we need to, again, let people know of the safety. Mm-hmm. And you know what? I even heard one of the chain organizations advertising their safety plan on a radio commercial. So if they're reaching out with that, and are they really presenting it as a point of difference, or are they presenting it as
a commitment,
safety for the customers that already come there?
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's probably the latter, because they want that traffic that they've built up. So it's the same thing. How do we make sure that we protect home plate?
Well, and this is what's really difficult for our industry and the retail industry, is the fourth quarter is the celebration quarter. And now we're affected by something that can dampen, it can rob the spirit of the staff. We had people suggested 2 different shifts here. We just said, throw out all ideas. We've got the protocol in place, but what other ideas can we do to serve and keep our doors open? We can't go through another. It's not like there's another PPE sitting around, right? Mm-hmm. And so what do we do to stay open? And do we bring the number of staff down and we work 2 shifts? I'm not certain what the answers are. In our organization, we had to really think about the layout of where our people are working and what can we do, and order new computers so they work from their homes. Yeah, we had to do that. We didn't do it the first round, but we are considering and going to be doing it this time. So what do you need to do to maybe make some changes in order to be able to stay open?
I'm going to suggest that all of you Google IDPH mitigation tiers. TIER, tiers.
Another question I asked today, what about the schools? Even in mitigation 3, it doesn't say the schools are closing.
No, and they've left open that they can add to it or take away from it, but that's what the mitigation tiers are right now. Mm-hmm. So
they can be adjusted, but salons are listed in mitigation 3, yes, or tier 3. Sorry.
And it's, honestly, it's right around the corner. So we have to think about that. The thing that could be right around the corner is a stay-at-home order. And I know, because I've had some salons talk to me about this, that they may choose to not honor the stay-at-home order. It's a risk, it's a personal choice. We can't tell you what's right and what's wrong, but be prepared. Be thinking in advance. What are you going to do if?
Well, I don't know. I mean, when you look at it, what's at risk here? If I'm not open, I'm going to have to close my business. If I am open, someone might tell me to close my business. Either one, either option stinks, and it doesn't feel good. And we have to figure out, what can we do, even at PSC, to help out in this madness, because your mind races on what's the right answer, what are the right things to do, and every employee has a different opinion of your decisions, right?
Well, and quite honestly, it only takes one guest.
As
it only
should.
takes one employee to become a whistleblower. So as long as you understand your risk and you're willing to take on whatever that risk is, that's fine. I heard a story of a school owner in another state who chose not to follow any of the COVID protocols and said, we're moving forward as if it didn't even exist, and if we get fined, I'll pay the fines. And that was that person's choice. And again, that wasn't our choice with our schools, nor would it be. But again, I get it.
I do too.
As a business person, I get it. But that's your choice. That's that goes to your pay grade as far as what you do for your own business. Mm-hmm. But also realize that sometimes the same people who don't take precautions outside your four walls are the people who are going to hold your feet to the fire for what precautions you take care of inside your four walls. Mm-hmm. I hope that makes sense, but it does, and that happens. So you have to be prepared, and you have to make sure that if you do something like that, your team's on board and they're solid, because nobody wants the negative publicity or the fines of not following. As for us, we follow. And that's our choice. It's our choice in our schools. It's our choice in our distributorship. But I understand.
And it's our choice in our home.
Yeah.
Right?
But I understand. It is an individual choice. And just because it's mine doesn't mean it's everybody's. Just because it's Terry's doesn't mean it's everybody's. So you've got to be, the key thing is, don't let this surprise you the way March surprised you. If it doesn't happen, all you've done is express some energy or devote some energy in an area that you don't have to use. But we do have a concern. So we already said, from PSC standpoint, our classes are going to be virtual. Our space location is going to be curbside delivery, and we will continue to ship as seamlessly as possible should a stay-at-home order happen. We have been told,
what have we been told?
Supposedly, this is something I forgot, we've been told that there will not be a differentiation this time should it happen, should a stay-at-home order happen, between essential business and non-essential business.
Ooh.
Which was a real
wow.
challenge the first time around.
When was that said?
I just heard it today.
Mm.
So, I know we've hit you with a lot of information, and it's I hope none of it matters. I really hope none of it matters. But what I know for sure matters right now is we are where we are with our level of mitigation. In Illinois, either Tier 1 or Tier 2. Tier 2 right now is the worst that we're at. We know the emergency travel order that's in place in Chicago. We know the stay-at-home advisory. Here's what I want to say, advisory, because as soon as that happened, I got a text from someone that works with us that said, here's the stay-at-home order, as if it was an order, as if it was back in March, and it's not.
It's suggested.
It's a suggested, it's an advisory. If you can, please do, is really what they're saying. And please take this seriously, because if we, because we have to get this mitigated.
I think when you look at an advisory, it's like the difference between a tornado watch and a tornado warning, which is telling you to take cover, right?
I think it's the difference between a watch, which means it could happen, and a tornado.
Yeah, well.
Because a tornado stops everything, and so does.
And says take cover immediately, right? Conditions are right. These conditions are right now, so we have to pay attention to them.
And please don't rely on the fact that there's going to be a vaccine tomorrow. There's definitely moving in the right direction, but everybody throws out that caution that that until it's here, they don't even know what. Like state of Illinois doesn't know what has to be purchased to keep it fresh based on which vaccine it is. I guess there's one of the vaccines that needs to be stored at 100 degrees below zero. Well, so you would say, why don't they just buy the machines to do that? Well, first of all, we don't know that that's going to be the vaccine. You could buy that and not need it and waste state funds. So I hope you'll find this to be value.
And we might be back on tomorrow.
We might be,
yep.
Depending on
what happens
what
overnight.
That's our commitment. Until this increase has been mitigated, we'll try and bring you information updated. The information happens throughout the day, and I know in most cases all of you are behind the chair. So most of you see this after the fact. You see it when you get home at night from a long day in the salon. We'll continue to put it out there and have it be there for you when you get home. We are in your corner, on your side, advocating for you. We'll continue to advocate for you. We are so grateful for your loyalty, for the continued business that you give us, and for the education. I do think, and here's my last thought. We're not going to teach on it at all, but we will at some point. If virtual learning is going to be the way, we or someone has to teach a class on how to learn virtually. That's the missing piece. Everyone has stepped up to the plate with virtual trainings.
I mean, they're available, but people
all
don't
the
know.
time.
People don't know how to engage in that. And
right, and how do you make it as valuable and as rich as you possibly can? So that's something that we're thinking about, that we're working on, and we hope to be the one that brings you that. But you should be thinking about it too, because you don't want to waste your people's time, and you don't want to put training on the back burner, because it's in most of your salons, it's part of your culture, just like it's part of PSC's culture.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
We'll talk to you soon.
Have a great evening.